doing this, I do in all my webinars have a presentation, but I do have my chat open. So if you do have a question, I will stop from periodically and ask if you have any questions. But if you do have a question, put it in the chat as well. I do watch the chat and the participants. If anybody drops out and have to rejoin, I do let you back in as well. So any questions before we get started? And can everyone see my screen okay? Okay. Welcome everyone to the Trucking and Logistics webinar. My name is Sarita Willingham. I am the founder and CEO of SJW Logistics. We are a full service 3PL where we offer freight transportation, freight brokerage, warehousing, fleet transportation, and order fulfillment services. So the beauty of us is that we're full service 3PL. We can offer our customers, clients, and whoever we work with, we can offer all the logistics services there are out there all on one invoice. I have been doing this. We're going into our 6th year, so I'm really excited about that. And we'll have 6 years in April. I have my team helping me work on a campaign. We're going to call it the Road to 6, where we're going to be sharing a lot. You'll see a lot more webinars. We're just going to be sharing the knowledge and education for those that want to be in the trucking industry. You'll know the good and bad, because I like to tell the good and the bad that goes along with the trucking industry. But today we're going to focus on just trucking and logistics, because I get a lot of questions in my inbox. So I wanted my first webinar of the year to start out with trucking and logistics. So hello everyone, nice to meet you and welcome. I'm excited for this first webinar here, and I made sure I cleared my calendar and made sure no one would bother me for this webinar, because it's been a very busy first of the year. So we will move on to the next slide, which is I started out with, why am I doing this webinar? Why did I decide to do trucking and logistics? These are the common questions that I see in our social media. We get it via email. I want to get started in trucking. What do I do? How do I get started in trucking? I want to open a trucking company. What do I do? I want to expand into warehousing. What do I do next? How do I dispatch? How many of you all, you can raise your hand or drop me a little note in the chat saying yes or no. How many of you all asked that question or have asked that question? Or if you have a trucking business, how many of you have been asked that question? I see some people saying yes, and me, I get those questions daily. And so I said, I'm going to have a webinar, because when I get that question, especially the ones saying, how do I get started in trucking? And I know nothing about you. I'm like, well, I don't know. How do you get started? So it's so funny, but I love the interest in the industry as well. But those are some of the questions that I am going to be attempting to answer. I may not be able to answer everyone's questions today, but I'll be attempting to answer. So if you do have questions while we're going through the presentation, don't hesitate to ask. It could be a very interactive webinar, but those are the questions we'll be targeting to answer. So with that being said, we do have an agenda, and today we're going to talk about the pros and cons, business planning, or starting a trucking company, dedicated contracts, dedicated customers. I get that question all the time. So how do I get a dedicated contract? Then leasing versus buying for those that want to be asset-based, leasing on to other companies. I'm going to tell you what's important about leasing on to other companies. Driver recruiting, I get that. Well, how do I find drivers? How did you find your drivers? So I'll be answering that question as well. Then we're going to talk about compliance. Compliance is very near and dear to my heart. So we're going to talk about compliance as well. Any questions so far? So now we're going, why the trucking industry? What are the pros and cons? So we'll start with pros. I can tell you from my own personal experience, you have a lot of independence. So you think, but you have a lot of independence there. You have a lot of flexibility, and you know, it could be a very profitable company, depending on how well you plan and what you focus on, and how good the guidance that you have. I will say that for me, the guidance, the mentors, the vendors, the people that are around me have helped me be the most successful in this industry. There. So, but the pros is you have independence, Within the trucking industry, trucks roll. You can book a load, not book a load. You can, if your truck is down, you can find other things to do. You can dispatch. So it's just so many different things you can do, but you can set your own schedule. Why? Because the trucking industry is kind of like the internet. It keeps moving 24/7. So, well, then when you look at the cons, it's time consuming. I eat, sleep, and live trucking. I live logistics. My family knows SJW, so it is something that's very much so time consuming. There's a lot of responsibility go with it. For those that want to be asset based, whether you have a box truck, a dually truck, or a semi truck, that's a commercial vehicle that you're entrusting someone to drive. Roads are dangerous, so that person is dependent on you to make sure their family is fed. So the compliance side of it, being able to meet that, get started, it's a lot of responsibility. And I put stress in all caps. It can be stressful. It can be very stressful. For those that are asset based, you probably could put a comment in there. When those trucks break down and you just got them out of the shop, and then that driver call and say, it's doing the exact same thing you put it in the shop for. No joke. I've had a truck down since October doing the exact same thing that it's been in the shop in Texas, Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina. And we finally got to a shop that's going to get it resolved 3 months later. So it's very stressful. It's very stressful. And then you have startup costs. I see you, Tamika, but you have startup costs there. So just depending on the direction that you're going to go in the trucking industry will depend on the startup cost. When somebody asks me, how much does it cost to get started in trucking? I look at them and I just look at them and I just look at them and say, what are you talking about? Because again, when you say trucking, is why? Are you dispatching? Are you brokering? Are you going to buy a truck? What are you talking about to get started? Because each division of the logistics industry has a different cost. So my advice is going to be to everyone by the end of this call is anytime you ask those questions, be a little more specific. Say, I have a box truck company and I want to expand my box truck company. Can you help me with what I should do next? I can promise you'll get a lot more answers out of me. Then maybe you should join my next webinar. So just want to give that word of advice to everyone. And yes, Michelle, I do feel like I've aged a whole lot. I started my company when I was 34 years old. So as the company turns 6 and I'm turning 40, sometimes I feel like retiring, like who I can sell this company to. So I definitely understand the feeling of that. But I will say over my journey, it has been a rewarding journey. I'm no longer in corporate America. That's a blessing. I have the flexibility to be at school events with my kids. That's the blessing. I have more time that I can spend at home. No, I don't have more time I can spend at home. I have a warehouse. Never mind that one. I did tell y'all I was honest, but I can say it has been very rewarding watching the growth, helping others, mentoring others. I feel like I found my purpose in life when I did take this journey. So I'm glad, as I tell people, bet on you. If you've seen some of my reels on Instagram and Facebook, I'm glad I betted on myself. I'm glad I had the support system that I have to encourage me, because there have been times that I've changed the whole name and just threw the whole SJW away and started back the next day. Say, you know what, I'm here today though. Yesterday is gone. So it can have its good and bad days. So any questions about that? Christian said, after 25 years in corporate, I will never go back. The vast industry opened doors to many opportunities. It does. And one thing I'll say for Christian, it opened opportunities because this is a networking community. For those that do not know, trucking and logistics, they should call it networking. Networking. Everybody knows somebody, or it's a big industry in a small circle. It really is. So we're going to talk about business planning and starting a trucking company. My advice to everyone whether you have your trucking company, if you've already started and you don't have a business plan, you want to expand, I am so big on planning. Those that work with me one-on-one, or in my class, I tell you, we need a plan. We need to know where you're going. We're not going to just be sitting out there floating in the air going whichever way the wind blows. We don't do that. We have a plan and we focus on it. So develop a business plan. Ask yourself, do I want to be a one-man show? Or do I want to have multiple trucks and trailers? Know that from the beginning, because you will know what you're focusing on. You want, and then I always feel, because I had a plan, it wasn't as easy to quit because I had something to refer back to. Well, you know what? Yep, I had this bump in the road, but that wasn't even part of my plan anyway. So ask yourself, you want to be a one-man show and you want to go buy you a brand new truck, that's okay. That's okay. I still want you to be profitable. I want you to still be able to get something consistent, which you can as a one-man show. And I still want you to understand the industry and how to plan for the good and the bad. I was once told when I was at Coca-Cola, this one guy told me, he said, if you plan for a rainy day, you never see the rain. So I've seen the rain though, and I plan for it. Just being honest, I've seen it, but I think it wasn't part. I didn't plan for COVID, so that was the only thing I didn't plan for. But do I want to lease on owner operators? In every part of trucking, you can expand through other people's money. You can lease on others. If you have a dispatching company, you can contract others to dispatch under you. If you have a freight brokerage, you can contract others to be agents under you. If you have a trucking company, you can contract trucks to come under you. So everything is stand under. And then ask yourself, what type of trucks do I want? This is the part when people ask me, I want to get started in trucking, what do I do? Trucking is so big. There are all different types of trucks. I don't know what you want. I don't know what you want to do. Help me help you. Know that. Do some research in the beginning to say, you know what? I'm going to focus on semi-trucks. That's what I did. When I decided I wanted to get into trucking, the first thing I did was went and learn what kind of trucks was out there, the different truck types. And then that's when I decided, I want to do semi-trucks. So that was my focus going forward to build my plan around. So I'm advising everybody, if you're going to do that, focus on what type of truck it's going to be.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So on that note of what types of trucks to focus on, so I am a person, I do scour the internet research, but how do you really hone in on what type of truck to start with that either works for you personally or, to have that focus? Like, how do you really hone in on that piece?
So what I did, that's a great question. How I selected my truck, I had talked to people that had box trucks, that had semi trucks, that were one-man shows, what type of freight they pull. I asked them, I'm a numbers person. How much money are you making? How much does it cost to keep this up? What type of requirements do I have to have for this particular truck? So me, I'm one of them type people. I'll go big or go home. So my daddy told me I couldn't do the military because it didn't consist of baking cakes and watching soap operas. So I went in the military and I completed my task. So I figured, they told me I couldn't have a semi-trucking company without CDL. I have a semi-trucking company with 14 trucks and I still don't have a CDL. So it just depends on what your focus is once you learn what all it requires and what you are willing to put into it. But that is how I decided, by researching what box trucks can make, what dually trucks can make, what semi-trucks can make. Do I want to have a day cab and do local work? Do I want to have a over-the-road truck and have drivers over the road? So just keep that in mind when selecting. when you narrow down your truck, but you also want to do a cost and profit analysis to say which one, what kind of money do I want to make is going to dictate what type of truck you want.
Thank you.
No problem. And I see Shauna say, I was told I have to put on my big girl pants. I did that, and I feel like we're falling off this business. Sometimes it do feel like a moving freight train that you can't stop. So I know that feeling. Michelle said, I think the hardest thing is truly finding accurate and realistic info on the specific type of transportation I'm trying to get into, because not everyone is open to sharing. I'm not sure why this industry became the way it became, because it was before my time, but it's not a loyal industry where people are open to sharing, because so many people have been undercut in this industry when it comes to deals. So that's why a lot of people are not open to sharing. Me, I'll share. I'll tell you, it's $800 billion. I'm not going to make it by myself anyway. So I might as well tell you and see how much we can make together. Together we are better. Someone else said, Jill said, this is off topic somewhat. I am in the charter industry, hauling mobile homes, oversized loads. Do you have any exposure to that industry? Yes, I do. If you get a FEMA contract, you'll find those quite often, because FEMA pull mobile homes to displaced families therein. And I'm not participating in that contract, but I have someone that I talked to that's looking for trucks to do that and haul oversized. And oversized, anything specialized has specialized money, as I call it. I'm not going to tell you that you make a lot of money. I'm going to tell you specialized money, because to make that specialized money, you're going to put some specialized rules in place and compliance. You have to meet some specialized standards, as they say. And then the other, going back to the presentation, it says, what type of trailers will I pull? You know, are you going to be power only? You know, do I want to be a brokerage, a freight brokerage? And then determine your business structure. Read up on it. So many people don't know LLC, S Corp, C Corp, whatever kind of corp you want to be. Determine that. I can tell you from my own experience, I started out as an LLC and I moved all my businesses to S Corp. But I wish I would have did that on the front end, because it was a bigger headache on the back end once COVID happened. So just have plan. I can't say how important that is to success in this industry if you plan. And then Michelle asked the question, how do I find those realistic numbers for each type of business besides networking to make sure? Do you watch load boards, research the type of materials or freight coming in out of your state or area you want to focus on? So I will say, to find numbers that are as close to realistic, I estimate it, because the industry and the market changes every day. So when I was doing my analysis and starting up for cost and all that good stuff, I estimated what does it look like in a bad day, and what does it look like on a good day. Then I multiply that by how many days I expect my truck to run, and then how many months I expect my truck to run. I went in for downtime, you know. So you're going to have to definitely put in some research on the numbers. But I will say, you'll see a lot of time in these trucking streets or in these Facebook groups, as I call them, where drivers saying they don't take nothing less than $2 a mile or less than $3 a mile. Don't base your life on that. Find out what your cost is and what works best for what you're trying to do. And then understand, people. I want everyone to understand the break even. If you start out with one truck and you believe what the trucking streets have told you that you're going to make a lot of money, I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. But I will tell you that over time, you can make a lot of money, but you got to know when you're going to break even. When I did my financial cost analysis, I didn't expect the profit for the first year, because I showed that my break even point wasn't until 18 months in with my one truck. Any other questions before we move on to the next slide? All right. So with business planning, what I decided to put in this presentation are some things to consider when starting a trucking company, startup costs. What things did you look for to plan what your costs are going to be? That is very important to know and to plan for there. So, EINs are free, but you can find these people that will set up your company if you're going to get the MCDOT, FMCSA, BCS, or BOC3 filing and all that good stuff. They come as a package deal. Then with the down payments, if you're getting a trucking company. Now, to get that, you can probably get some pretty accurate numbers, or you can call some dealerships and say, hey, I'm looking about what are your down payments average for a credit score. If you don't have business credit, you don't already have a trucking company, they're going to pull your personal credit. They're going to base it off your personal credit. And I can just tell you, when I started 6 years ago, my personal credit score was like in the 750 range. I still had a 24% interest rate. Why? Because I was an investor with no CDL. I couldn't drive the truck. So they don't just base it off your credit score. They're basing it off the probability of them getting their money back when they loan you that money. I could not drive, so there was a 0% probability in Aretha paying the money back if the truck if she didn't have a driver back, a driver driving the truck, because she couldn't drive the truck. So that to that company was a high risk, and to every company. So I got denied by a lot of companies. So don't think just because you have a great credit score that you'll get a lower interest rate. There's so much that goes into that. And then, look at your branding. When you look at the branding for your truck, for your company, start out with what your business name is going to be. Check the domain. Even if you don't build a website, go ahead on and get your email that comes with the domain. You can pay $12 a year just to hold that domain so nobody else holds it in case you do decide to build your website out. But just think of the things that you want to do for the future, plan for the future. It goes a long way, especially for those that want to go into government contracting and working with other companies. I took a class with Target, and Target told me the first thing they did before they selected me to be in their class was they went to my website and what they saw they liked. So they were like, oh yeah, we want her in the class for our diversity program. So just keep that in mind if you're planning on getting contracts and working with other companies, that the things that they look for. A lot of things you're going to do in business is for the future. You're trying to set yourself up for the future, not for the current situation that you're in. Then decide if you're going to have office space, know your state rules on workman's comp, insurance, if you're going to have a staff, the technology, software, training, FMCSA filings, and again, like I said, the branding. So those are all things you want to decide if you're going to go that far, if you need that, and then you're going to estimate or get the actual cost on it to add it to your cost analysis. Then I have some more questions coming in. It says, Michelle asked, do you have an example of a cost analysis sheet you use or a template? Yes, I do, Michelle. I do use that for myself that I built in Excel and put some formulas in to be able to calculate some things for me. BL asks, what is the best truck brand to purchase when starting out? Looking for a box truck or a semi truck? BL, from experience, I have been told International is trash and Freightliner is the best. I had my best experience with an International. I've been told that Volvos are the best, and I've had a great experience with Volvo. So it just depends on what people like and what they've driven to say what the best truck brand to start out with. I will say for me, I started out with a Freightliner because I looked at how many shops were along the way in case my truck break down to be able to get my truck fixed. How many maintenance shops did they have across the US versus International versus Volvo versus Mack, So keep that in mind, that when you do get some equipment, they're gonna have issues, and sometimes not everyone, a side shop can always work on your equipment. You may have to take it to the dealership and it costs a tow bill. But I have Kenworth, I have Volvo, Peterbilt, I have a mix of trucks on there, and they all at the end of the day do the same thing. They ride, they break down, they make money, they lose money. So you're gonna have to find what works best for you once you do your research on I would say you can call around to the shop and do maintenance checks. Say, how much is your hourly rate for labor? So you kind of estimate if this truck break down and needs a tire change, you know, if it takes them 3 hours to change the tire, I'm gonna spend about this much money on this, you know. Every brand has a different one. I think, for example, International charges like $190 an hour versus Freightliner charges $160 an hour. So just keep that in mind. I have a question. What is a good site for domain registration? I don't know what's a good site for domain registration, but most people either use GoDaddy or Google, and Microsoft has domain registrations as well. So it just depends on which one you prefer. Paris says, my first truck was a 1999 International. It was one of my best box trucks. See, everybody has a different experience. So depending on who you talk to, you're gonna get a different answer. Yes, I do use third-party people to design things. I am not a do-it-all person, Michelle. Next, going on to the presentation, more business planning. Plan your operations. Plan your operations. I'm telling you, think of when you put in your budget, go ahead on the budget to hire someone if you're looking at expanding. It is so much easier to do that on the front end as you plan that. Why do you want to do that? Because you will get burned out. Being a one-man show and growing, you will get burned out. So plan to hire someone. Show other people how to help you. If somebody offers to help you, let them. Let them help you. That took me a minute to understand and do that, but I did it, and I'm so appreciative of it. I had a hard head, but I appreciate my head being soft and let somebody help me. You know, ask yourself, will you hire an accountant or payroll company? All this is important in your starting your trucking journey, because people want to be paid on time. So very important. And listen, my best advice I can give you if you want to keep drivers, if you start a trucking company, do not penalize that driver and not pay them because your truck broke down. You need to have something in your plan to pay them regardless when that truck breaks down. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault there. So you want to just keep that in mind. To pay them, and they're gonna want to be paid on time. So just budget for that, save for that, set your pay rate, different things like that, but make sure you have that in your business plan. And then the biggest thing is understanding trucking company that's a typo, governed by the federal government. That is so very important. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, well, marijuana is legal in this state and it's legal. I don't care what state it's legal in. It's governed by the federal government and it's not legal when operating a commercial vehicle. So I want you all to definitely educate yourself on rules and regulations. That's going to be so critical in your operation. And then, you know, a lot of times I get the question, well, should I lease or should I buy? I can just tell you the pros and cons of leasing and buying. You know, leasing is similar to renting. Once you pay that note, you know, once you're done with the terms of it, you're going to turn it back in. A lot of times you've been in business for a while, you got some kind of business credit established, you don't have to pay a down payment. Not always, but a lot of times. You don't have maintenance costs because that's baked into what you're paying for that lease. And it's more of a predictable budget. It keeps your fleet up to date. A lot of times when it comes to hiring drivers, especially the ones that come from these new schools, they're being taught to drive and drive automatic. And then they also are young, so they want the newest equipment out there because they do treat their trucks like their home. So that's an option for leasing. If your goal is to expand over time, it may not be a bad option for you, because you'll always be able to keep your fleet up to date as you turn in your trucks you're leasing. However, you most of the time you'll never own that truck because there's a balloon payment at the end, to own it with a lease. But when it comes to buying, there's probably a down payment required. You're going to be responsible for the the maintenance. And then once the vehicle, you'll own the vehicle once it's paid off. So those are the benefits of buying, but all the responsibility will definitely be on you. Now, I can tell you I have experience with both leasing and buying. Both of them work very well for SJW. I was excited when we leased our truck and it broke down and they didn't call me with the bill. So, but I pay for it per month over time. So it makes a difference in affordability as a small business. So definitely study that to see which one's gonna work the best for you. And I have a question says, do you 1099 any of your drivers? We give our drivers the option to be 1099 or W-2 if they do not own their truck. If they're owner operator, they have no choice but to be a 1099. Janine asked me, what was the first key person you hired? An operations manager, somebody that could dispatch and route and talk to the drivers besides me. That was the most valuable and important person I could have hired. She's my MVP until this day. So, the other thing I can tell you in getting into the trucking industry is to decide if you're going to lease on to other companies. That's a low cost way where you don't have to try to do it all by yourself and pay all the expenses by yourself, because other companies will carry those expenses. My best advice I could give to you for that though is make sure you have contracts, and more contracts in place, and make sure you read them, make sure you understand them. Right now, I'm seriously mentoring a company who had an owner operator leased onto them with no owner operator agreement. And the owner operator told me, I haven't been paid for this company in 8 months. I only could say, where's your owner operator agreement? Where's your contract? Why haven't they paid you? Where's your last settlement? Where's your balance due? Again, so important when leasing on to other companies. To be able to make sure that you get a contract for them from them. Understand, but again, it's a low cost way to get into the trucking industry. A lot of times companies, if you have your CDL, they'll let you lease purchase where you can act as an owner operator. Sometimes you can do very well depending on the contracts and freight that those companies have. And sometimes it's just, maintaining your cost of living with all the expenses that come out. But again, they're gonna put it in the fine print. Read. That's the best advice I can give you, is to read. And if you don't understand it, don't be afraid to ask them. Don't be too excited to get the opportunity that it costs you in the long run. And I have another question from Myra. Says, do you have any feedback on how to start up a successful dispatching business? Myra, actually I do. We have a 5-day dispatch challenge that'll give you everything you need to start up a successful dispatching company. I love the questions coming in here. Any tricks or traps you've seen in contracts we should pay attention to? Depending on the company you go, there could be some fees in there that you don't quite understand, but when you see your check, I've seen checks come across where drivers work and run cross country and get $200 a week because of the escrows. And when the company say escrow, they'll say that you have a maintenance escrow and an insurance escrow, and they'll say you have other kind. They bake all kind of things into that to protect themselves with the truck. But sometimes those escrows can be a bit much where it reduces what you take home and you're working very, very hard. Someone asked me, Paris says, what's your take on leasing drivers to your fleet? We do lease on drivers to our fleet. We do help drivers get started in the trucking industry. And if they want to expand and branch off into their own authority, we've had companies lease on, get started and build up, and they lease on to their own, they create their own authority and branch off from us as well. Kristen, you're right. They will nickel and dime you for some stuff. So it's very important to read and understand what you're getting into with that. But it's a definite possibility and a low cost way to get into the trucking industry asset base. And Ms. Karen, so you get everything you need in that 5-day dispatch challenge. Biggest thing, driver recruiting. I get asked, how do you find your drivers? Believe it or not, we find it by good old traditional Craigslist. You would be, for the smaller companies, posting an ad on Craigslist, we get calls back to back, local, regional, whatever position you want, you get calls back to back for that. For Craigslist. Their drivers, I don't know, they just sitting on Craigslist. Craigslist got an alert, but most of the drivers on my team have came from Craigslist. You can do Indeed, and there's some other job sites out there. There are CDL job sites out there as well. I haven't had much luck on those. The best luck I've had is on Craigslist, word of mouth, or referrals. Those are sites you can use for your driver recruiting. My best advice I can give to you for those that are getting into the trucking industry is making sure you have a payment agreement or a lease agreement, making sure you have something documented for that driver to sign. That is so important and so critical in the trucking industry. When I first started, mine was 1 page. I think it's like 3 pages now from all the learning of my do's and don'ts, what we accept, expectations. So put your requirements on paper. It is so important in your company. You don't want drivers coming back to you and telling you how to run your company. You want to start out the gate. This is what we have to offer. This is what you'll get paid. This is when you'll get paid. These are the benefits we offer. But if you offer a bonus or not, your expectations and what their minimum requirements are to meet those expectations. And when you sit down to hire those drivers, read it with them. I know a lot of times people say, read this and you understand, they'll just sign. No, read it with them. That is me. I read it with you. So that way, when you come asking me a question, per our agreement in section 3, line 2, this is what we went over, and that rule has not changed. I can't tell you how many people that, how many times my drivers have said, oh, because we get paid every Friday. Oh, Christmas falling on a Friday this year. Am I going to get paid on Thursday? My pay scale not changing because Christmas changed days, okay? Your bank will deposit it on Friday or whenever they're going to deposit it due to the holiday. I'm going to process it on Tuesday. So just have it in black and white. It makes life so much easier. Any other questions on that? Because we're getting to the end, and I like to save a little bit of the end for questions, live questions. But another thing that I told y'all at the beginning of class that's very near and dear to me is compliance. Compliance is so important because compliance can make or break you in this industry. You may have that very important load to deliver and your driver is they're not doing their e-log, and you're not paying attention to it, and they go through a weigh station and they get shut down because for fraudulent logs, as they like to call them. You can't deliver that load on time, and sitting on the load, you lose money. So very important to put your compliance and safety standards in place. It's worth, if you don't have time to manage that, it's worth paying somebody to manage, because compliance can make or break you in this industry. One thing that's very important is this new thing that they've started, the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. Guys, check that clearinghouse before you give them a drug test after they've been approved by your insurance. That is so important. Don't go wasting your money drug testing a driver first to hire them. Don't go wasting your money checking the clearinghouse. Get them approved by your insurance first, because normally it don't cost anything to get them approved by your insurance. But once they're approved, before you go and do the drug and alcohol clearinghouse, it's only, I'm sorry, before you go do a drug test, it's only like $1.05 or $1.15. It's the cheapest and best money you could spend is checking their clearinghouse. If they won't give you access to their clearinghouse, you don't want to hire that driver. If they give you access and you see something that's carrying, say it's $1.25 for that clearinghouse. If they give you access, you want to look at it and see if they have any violations reported. Biggest thing you want to see if their CDLs are prohibited or not. Very important to understand that drug and alcohol clearinghouse. Very, very important to understand that. And I see someone ask how much is the 5-day dispatch class. We'll go over that in a second. I see Latasha saying the 5-day dispatch class was awesome and totally worth it. Everybody's talking about the 5-day dispatch class. Now I'm gonna get to y'all on that one. Myra, do you have a trucking company do you have to have a trucking company to have your own authority of like a CDL, or what does authority apply to? So again, that goes back to what I was saying, educate yourself on. I tell people you can have a trucking company and lease on to other companies and run under their authority. You still the owner of that trucking company. You know, you may be ABC Division leased to SJW Trucking, but you own all those trucks under ABC Division or ABC Logistics. So you don't have to have an authority to have your own trucking company. You can buy as many trucks as you want and lease them on, but you're still gonna be the owner of those trucks. So therefore you qualify to have a trucking company. So it's really the route that you decide to go. It says, so you can apply for authority even if you don't have a truck or CDL. No. Now to get your authority active, you have to have an asset. So it doesn't work in reverse. So make sure, again, back to compliance, make sure you are compliant. Make sure you understand what's all required when you do have your company, so you don't get fined. If you do have your own authority with FMCSA, it's coming in and finding you or shutting you down or deactivating your authority. And I have a question said, where do you find more information about compliance and regulations? I want to learn more about the back office side of the house. Yes, Christian, you couldn't have said it better. Read the FMCSA handbook. That's a big handbook to read, but FMCSA is my best friend. But we also have a compliance manager on here that teaches that as well. Miss Karen is on here. And she is big on trucking compliance. That's what she does. She helps new companies get their compliance in order. She tells them what they have to have in their trucking trucks when they're stopped. She tells them what the logs have to be, how long they have to retain paperwork. So Miss Karen is your person to talk to on here. Miss Karen, I just did a whole commercial for you, okay? So any other questions for me? I'm going to stop the presentation because we are at the end before we talk about the next webinar that we have coming up. As well, Miss Karen, if you want to put your email in there so they can contact you. And it's Latanya on the call.
I am.
Okay, cool. But Miss Karen, if you want to put your email or how they can contact you, Miss Karen is, like I said, she helps new companies get their compliance in order. So if you do decide to go the route of getting your own authority, there you'll be able to pass that first audit with FMCSA with flying colors with Miss Karen. And do you still have space available for mentoring? Yes, we still have space available for mentoring as well. Jill has a question. If you're under contract to lease purchase, is that considered an asset for you getting your own authority, or do you have it paid for already? That is considered an asset. If you're under contract, it is considered an asset. You all have kept the questions coming. Do I have any other questions? If not, we're going to talk about our next class that we have coming up, which I'm very excited about, on February the 2nd. There, I just told y'all how important this drug and alcohol clearinghouse is to me, and the compliance is to me. So I am going to do a whole webinar on just the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. Why am I going to do that? The reason why is because I have talked to so many drivers that are going through the SAP program for stuff because they just don't understand this clearinghouse. So many companies don't understand this clearinghouse, but it is so important to your business and violation reporting, because if you have a driver that's prohibited and they go through that and they don't tell you, or you're not running your clearinghouse like you're supposed to, you could be shut down from that there. So very, very important. We're going to update our website after this webinar. That's fine, Shauna, you can reach out. But we're going to update our webinar after this presentation we're going to update our website after this presentation, so you all can sign up for the next webinar if you're interested in the drug and alcohol clearinghouse. But there is so much knowledge there that is required. It can be a whole webinar by itself with that, and that's part of FMCSA regulation. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that everyone, not everyone, but I saw a lot of chat going on about is that we have coming up as our next class is the 5-day dispatch challenge. So we do have a 5-day dispatch challenge starting next week on Monday at 2 p.m. In the 5-day dispatch challenge, I teach you how to start your dispatching company, what you can dispatch on. We do live booking of loads. We go over rate negotiation, how dispatchers can get dedicated lanes, how they can work with brokers as well. There is a lot of information. I give you the contracts for dispatching. And the reason why I love teaching dispatching, because it's one of the low cost items in the trucking industry, but it touches on everything from shipping to receiving to brokers to drivers. If you know dispatching, you could be very successful in the industry. You can also make passive income, or you can make a really good living off dispatching. There are companies out there that they do dispatching full time for drivers. Yes, Carissa, the training is recorded. If you can't watch it, you can always log into your student center that we have, and you can rewatch the training, and we leave it live for up to 30 days. And Latanya is actually putting a link in there to the dispatch challenge for anyone interested in signing up or reading more about it. But in that dispatching challenge, you will learn how to be a successful dispatcher. We also have drivers come on and tell what they're looking for in dispatching. We have a dispatcher come on that do it every day. We also have my operations manager come on, and she talks about, what it's like dispatching 14 trucks. Jill, do you provide resources for software for dispatching? Yes. I actually show you all the software that you can use to dispatch and book loads and track your drivers so you can invoice them. One thing for those that have taken my class, we talk about how you get your money for the drivers. That's very important. Do I have any other questions? Ms. Karen said again, everything you need. Yes, Michelle, come on, sign up. We're to the end of the webinar. We have about 6 minutes left. Let me take it off up here. Again, Latanya is posting in there the chat for how you can access the dispatching, or where our site is to go sign up for the next webinar. And I enjoyed the questions. I really did. I'm glad you all were very active during the webinar asking questions. I hope this was good information for you. I hope it answered a lot of questions for you, especially the questions of how did I get started, where did I get started? You know, start with the plan. That's the biggest thing, is starting with a plan. Do I have any other questions? Thank you, Michelle. You're welcome, Tamika. Everyone, you're all welcome. But I have about 5 minutes left. Kristen said, thank you for not gatekeeping. I appreciate you greatly. Hey, Miss Karen, thank you. You're welcome, Keena. But again, guys, the trucking industry is a $800 billion industry. I couldn't make all the money if I tried, and I'm not going to try. It says, what about contact and guidance on getting your own authority? Did I miss that? We talked about how you would go to FMCSA if you decide that that's the route you want to go to get your own authority. Are there any other questions? Want to get into warehousing? Oh, that's a good one. So for those that take my 5-day dispatch challenge, we do a tour of the warehouse. So if you take the challenge, you'll get to see the warehouse. You'll get to see what they do in the warehouse. And we do go over warehousing, and I share what the warehouse looks like. I can't walk during these webinars because Latanya, she'll get on to me if I do that. BL asks, what hiccups do you have in the beginning of starting your business? The biggest hiccup I had was, like I said, my truck was a lemon, so it burned down within the first year. And I went the traditional route of what the streets say, buy a truck and put a driver in it. And I tell people, if you've heard that company, Molo Solutions, they started the same year I started, but they started as a freight broker. I started asset-based as with my own authority. And Molo Solutions sold their company last year, the year before last, for like 100 million or something like that. And I'm still sitting right here at SJW waiting to sell mine. So that's probably the biggest thing, is I probably would have did a little more research, but I think I'm on the right path anyway. This probably is the one that God wanted me to be on. Paris said, with your mentors program, can you build it out based on your need? Yes. That is the first thing we do in the mentor program, is you do a mentee questionnaire on what are you trying to focus on, what's your goal, and then we build it out. It's a 3-month program with the mentoring. It's not something that we meet one time and that's it. It's a 3-month program with the mentoring, and then you get free follow-up classes after you do the mentoring because you become an alumni. And what we do is to make sure that your plan is still on track, and that you, or if we need to change your plan. So mentoring is not just during those 3 months, but it start out initially during those 3 months of that. And then after that, we continue with that plan. Janine, how soon after starting your trucking company did you branch into warehousing? I started my company in 2017, and we didn't get into the warehouse until January of 2021. So 4 years later. Paris, can you put your email in here, or you can go to our website, and on our website, if you all go to logisticalmix.com, you can select the program that you're looking for. We have the dispatching up there, we have the mentoring, we have consulting, we have our next webinar up there. So for those that want to learn more about Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, definitely sign up for that. as well. But if you go to logisticalmix.com, Paris, you'll be able to see all that information. And Latanya put the link in here for mentoring. You're welcome. And then Tracy said, how hard was it to get customers for the warehousing? For us, it was not hard, Tracy, because we already had the trucking side, so we just went to those customers first. Sometimes people reinvent the wheel because they don't look in-house. We went in-house and we started there. Yeah, did the light bulb come on for you then, Tracy? I see that response. Oh, okay, cool. Well, guys, my time is up. Again, I thank you guys so much for your time today. Thank you for all the questions. I appreciate it as well. This recording will be sent out within 24 hours after the webinar. And I want you all to have a great day and a great 2023. And my slogan for 2023 is bet on you. So bet on you in 2023. You'll like the results. Have a good one.